Welcome to the Pediatric Playbook, where we guide growth in children and balance in ourselves. I'm Amanda, a pediatric occupational therapist, here to share stories, strategies, and insights to support parents, therapists, teachers, and caregivers as we navigate the ever-evolving world of child development together. From tackling potty training and sensory needs to celebrating milestones, this podcast is your go-to resource for practical advice, inspiring stories, and honest conversations. Each week, we'll explore topics that matter to you, whether you're a parent looking for answers or a pediatric OT, SLP, PT, or educator searching for fresh perspectives. I'll also sit down with other therapists and professionals to dive into their unique journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into this journey together. Whether you're here for personal growth, professional insights, or a little bit of both, I am so glad you're here. Welcome back to another episode on the Pediatric Playbook. I'm your host, Amanda, and today's episode is truly a special one. I'm joined by Amber, a mother to 6 amazing children, 3 of whom are autistic. Amber's journey with autism has been life-changing, and what once was a word she feared has now become a word that she understands and loves. Amber's passion is helping other parents navigate the autism landscape, and she connects with moms with resources and services and really just helps them understand their child's needs and empowers them to confidently take the best next steps for their family. And in this episode today, Amber is going to share her incredible story, one that's filled with challenges and triumphs and a ton of valuable lessons for you. Her insights will inspire and equip parents, whether you're navigating autism or potty training, or simply just looking for some encouragement on your parenting journey. Amber, I am so thrilled to have you. Let's dive right into this conversation.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you today, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So you've had such an incredible journey with your family over the years. So to start, could you just tell us a bit about your story and what led you to become so passionate about supporting other parents?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I do have 6 kids, 3 of whom are autistic. And the thing about that is as it turns out, I've kind of been doing autism through different decades. So because I have an autistic son who's about to be 21, but I also have 2 little autistic girls who are 4 and 6. So I'm actively still advocating and navigating in this space. And I think it just, at a certain point, I realized I know a lot here and I'm at a place of peace with my family. And despite the disability, we have so much fun, we have so much joy, we have so much happiness. We're like to the other side where we have diagnoses in place, we have services in place, my kids are thriving, and I want to help other parents get to that place.
Yeah. And how is that different now from 20 years ago to the children that you're raising now? I'm sure it's a completely different set of resources and approaches.
I mean, yeah, it really is different. And my oldest son didn't even receive his medical diagnosis until he was 12. If I had him again now as a baby, I would have that diagnosis for him by age 3, if not sooner. So that just goes to show the difference in understanding and resources in autism.
Yeah. Did you notice those early signs early on with any of your kids, but particularly your oldest, that you were like, okay, I think something's going on, but I'm not really sure if I should reach out for help? Was your pediatrician bringing up any concerns with you?
No, and I had concerns by the time he was 2.
Mhm.
And it was just this thing where I would take him to get assessed places and they would tell me that he's testing average or that things look normal, but things were not normal at home. I mean, but from the time, bear in mind, my first 4 kids were adopted as babies. So he is my first child. I've never been a mom before. But when I brought him home, and I didn't get him till he was 2 months old, the one thing I did notice is he could not make eye contact as an infant. Couldn't, just never did. But then he went on to hit his other developmental milestones largely. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but then by age two, it was like the ADHD component, which back then, if they did give a child a diagnosis for ADHD, they were not also looking to diagnose them as autistic.
Mm.
So it's a long story. But yeah, if I knew then what I know now, things would have been a lot different.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, obviously now we know that autism and ADHD go hand in hand so much of the time, and we're more aware of some of those early signs that parents can be better supported. But it's also important to know that sometimes kids are able to reach all of those milestones and are up to par with those fine motor skills, and they're able to write their name and do puzzles and do all of the
Sweet.
things and speak. Yeah, they're able to communicate with us, and they might still have an autism diagnosis, and that's okay. It's just going to be completely unique and different with every child, just as it is with our neurotypical developing
Oh,
children.
exactly. Hmm.
And I know each of your children is on, their own completely unique journey, and this comes with each of their own individual strengths and struggles and interests. But can you tell us a little bit about your kids and how you approached potty training for each of them? What did this process look like for your family? You've done it 6 times now.
Yeah. Well, for the first four of them, it was pretty easy, even including my autistic son, honestly. They all hit about age 3, and I would do that thing where you have a potty party weekend,
Mhm.
and I would have the little portable potty, and we'd just spend a couple days with lots of fun drinks and fun foods and probably sticker charts and treasure boxes. And when they'd go potty, we'd celebrate and make a big deal and reward them. And then, they'd catch on pretty quick. It was pretty easy. I don't remember it being hard with the big four of mine. When it came to my little girls, it was a completely different ballgame. And uh, you're gonna have to stop me because this can be a long story if I get into too many details.
Remind me, your two youngest are under the age of 5.
At this point, one turned 6 this month. So
Oh,
and one just turned 4. So I'm just calling them 4 and 6. But
okay.
yeah,
They're more of our COVID era children compared to
oh,
your older 4.
that is true. And I
Yeah.
don't know how that plays in. That's totally true. But Mallory had a lot of anxiety around releasing. And the thing about Mallory is I had her in ABA therapy. She was at a community preschool 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And I thought I was going to get to escape having to potty train her because they do that as part of like being BCBAs and RBTs. They help potty train your child. And that just didn't turn out to be the case. And I tried a few things at home myself, but it just wouldn't click. We tried, the potty party weekend, didn't work. And the RBTs, the BCBAs at her ABA-based preschool used all their tricks, and they would get her to sit on a schedule, but nothing would ever happen because she was afraid of releasing.
Yeah.
So it took me, she was 4.5 before I was like, look, this is not working. All of their best tricks to professionals, they're not even working with her. And I kind of just did a Hail Mary. I grabbed this one book that I hadn't read before, and we can talk about this book because there's some strong opinions about this book. But this book that I picked up, I was listening to it as an audiobook. I didn't even listen to the whole book, but I remember listening in the beginning, and I felt so terrible because she spelled out this magic potty training window that's supposed to be like, if I remember correctly, between age 2 and 3. Remember, my daughter's 4.5 at this point. And I felt like she was saying, like, if you don't capitalize on this magic window, like your child is not going to potty train. So that I didn't like and I felt bad about, but there were a couple things that flipped my mindset and helped me have success. And one of them was she said, essentially, like, you think you have to wait until they're ready, until they indicate that they're ready. And really, what's important is just believing that they're capable, like, just believing in them because they're probably not going to choose it. They have
Yeah.
had that diaper against their bum since the day they were born, and that's comfortable. And they're probably not, some kids do, rarely, but they're probably not going to choose to give that up. So just believe that they're capable. So
Yeah.
that helped me a lot because I thought to myself, well, she's capable. I think she could do this. Okay. And then somewhere along there, I also picked up like, if she's capable, then we can do this. And I just have to not quit when it gets hard.
Yeah.
And
Your readiness is just as important as your child's readiness.
yeah. But it really made such a difference to realize that, like, no, she's capable. And this goes for even our non-speaking autistic kiddos. A lot of parents might think, I don't know if they can do it because I don't know what they understand, right?
Exactly. And I think there's so many different methods out there, and so many people love that book. And she has so much knowledge. She's been doing this for so many years. I've read through it myself and seen, the success stories that parents have had. So if it's a strategy in a book that you want to pick up and you find success with, I think that's amazing. It's not a method that's going to work for everybody. It's the same thing as anything in the world, not everything is a one size fits all model. But you could, like you said, you can also take little pieces and tidbits and information from different strategies and different practitioners that might have a different scope and area of expertise to help guide you along this journey, especially if your child is not on that normal path and they're coming up with some of these bumps in the road of like, okay, this is not going to be a potty weekend success story for us. Like, this is going to be like a 6 month, possibly a year process for us. And that's okay if that's the journey that you guys end up being on. But like you said, having the confidence, not just in your child, but in yourself, that you can actually stick to this even when you have those hard days and you're having nonstop accidents and extra laundry to do and all of those things. Like, once you get past that, it's just such an exciting journey on the other side.
Well, and if you lean into the fact like this is going to be hard, this is going to suck, but I'm not going to quit. I don't care if this takes a year. We're just doing this. I feel like mindset helps a lot. But I'd love to share for me with that book why it was a good choice for that particular child, and then the thing that was a challenge as well, if you don't mind.
For sure. I also would love to know if there's like a moment when things started to click for you guys, like how did progress come? So yeah, dive into all
Yeah.
the things.
So the thing that I thought would work for my daughter is that she teaches you to kind of try to carve out a good long weekend or a week, even if it means taking time off of work. Who wants to do that? But this is the bottomless method, meaning they're going to be going without any underwear, any pants on, like they're just naked on the bottom at first, because it is kind of like an event in the beginning. Maybe not a weekend. You need to give yourself more time than that. But what you're doing is, well, they're bottomless. You're doing nothing else. You're not scrolling your phone. You're not watching TV. You're just spending one-on-one time with that child, and you're staring at them, watching for their signs, watching for their body language. Sure, you're offering them drinks and such, but you kind of want them to pee themselves, because when you catch them peeing, you are going to, kind of physically help them get to a potty to finish releasing. Because at first they won't know what's coming. And then once it happens the first time and you get them where they're supposed to go, that can start to help them click. Because I thought to myself, she has such a fear of releasing. But if I make it so she has no choice to be so uncomfortable that she has to release, and then show her where it's supposed to go, and then we celebrate, maybe that'll help it click. That's ultimately what did help end up working with her. And so within a couple days, she was clicking to go pee in the potty. So that was a win. And so then you graduate from being bottomless to she has you put them in loose shorts, not tight underwear, because a lot of times kids will just pee in the tight underwear because it feels like a diaper, something up against their skin, and then eventually into underwear. Now, where this is a problem, and I know, Amanda, you know this, is sometimes navigating that transition into underwear is a problem. But for her, she was afraid of underwear. She didn't even want to put them on. So I couldn't get her favorite character and have her be excited about wearing them. She didn't even want to wear underwear. That's why this method worked for her. The anxiety of releasing, the fear of underwear, we had those things to overcome. And again, it clicked, the peeing clicked first. It took 6 more months until we got her potty trained to poop in the toilet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the high level summary. The hard thing with these 2 little girls, potty training them, I was a stay-at-home mom with my other kids. I essentially am now as well, except for when I'm helping parents working on the business, but I had to share them with that preschool. So I had to work with a team and try to have something consistent happening both at home and at preschool. And that was tricky.
How did you navigate those conversations with the preschool? Like, did they have their own set of ideas and routines that they wanted to do, or were they able to adopt what you were doing?
So my answer is different for each kiddo. I'll talk about Kennedy in a minute, but for Mallory, they had been working with her for a year, two different BCBAs, lots of different RBTs. I think that they appreciated me stepping in. And I just kind of had to remember I'm the expert of my child, even though I get to work with experts and I'm grateful. I kind of went to them and I was like, this is what we're doing. I'm potty training Mallory on this weekend. When we come back to school, can you please have the RBTs ready to support in this way? Like, what do you think? Okay, yes, let's do this. And then there was lots of communication each day about how it went. Do I need to bring down more, kind of treats and presents? Because that was very motivating for her. We had to do that with her. And so we just stayed in contact, and there were some hard moments, like moments where she would be holding for like 8 hours. And I was like, do I have to take her to the ER? Like, she has to pee. She still carried that anxiety of releasing at school sometimes, but she worked through it. We got through it. We just didn't quit. So
Was she able to communicate and verbalize where some of those fears were coming from, or that was harder for you to navigate and figure out?
she was not able to, she can speak, but she was not able to communicate her feelings at that time. She probably could now, more so, but
Yeah.
she couldn't. It was so hard. And it was I'm sure I was in tears some of those days when
Yeah.
I knew she had to pee. And I was like, threatening, honey, we're going to have to go to the hospital if you don't pee. And then she'd have so much anxiety because she doesn't want to go to the hospital because she's afraid of any doctor's appointments. Shame on me. That probably wasn't nice of me, but I was so desperate in some of those moments that I would do anything to just get her to release.
For sure. And I think that that's, a part that is not talked about a lot is how our own anxieties and pressures and the pressures from the school can really impact kids and their anxieties and feelings around this. Like, they really do feed off of our energy so much.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize, like, okay, and it's okay, if those things come out, it's okay for a parent, to be scared and to be anxious about these things. Like, you can't just suppress your own emotions, but it's
Yeah.
important just to like recognize, okay, this thing that I said might be why she's a little bit fearful. How can
Yeah.
I reopen up this conversation about hospitals and about peeing and why I might have said that? Because I think kids like store this in their brain in like little folders and they
Yeah.
recall all those conversations. But if we can rewrite their experience and their understanding of things, we can help make it positive and okay again for them. But I think instead of being
Yeah.
so upset with, something maybe we said one time, and I know that's a big one, or when people go into public restrooms, they're like, oh my gosh, don't touch anything. Like, there's so many germs on toilet seats. Like, don't sit, don't touch. And so then kids associate that with all bathrooms, which it's totally okay. I know public restrooms are germy and it's okay to talk about that, but I think kids carry around this fear, especially those kiddos that were going through this during the COVID time when we were extra anxious and afraid of germs.
Yeah.
They associate it with toileting in general, and it might not even be sitting. They might think, okay, if I pee, there's germs. They don't understand sometimes what we're talking about and referring to.
You're so right. And I would have done some of that different for sure, if I had it. And I would have just needed to talk to somebody who could tell me, Amber, if she holds for 12 hours, she's not going to die. Like, she will release at some point. Yes, we might get, infections, but we can treat those. But again, then I would be having anxiety knowing how much she hates the doctor. If I have to take you because you have an infection, then we have more problems. Like, it was this whole cycle of anxiety. I should have got it under control myself, probably a little bit better.
Hey, I mean, we can't go back and change the past, and you did the best that you could with what you had at the time, and you're, following advice from experts and books, and you were doing all the things that you were equipped with. So you did an amazing job, and she got there. All of your children are now potty trained, correct?
Yeah, they are. So Kennedy, I potty trained Mallory starting in March of that year. And then in May, I had another long weekend and I'm like, I'm doing Kennedy. She's not quite 3, but she's showing signs. Her BCBA and her RBTs are not telling me that they are seeing readiness, but I think I see it. I've told you this before, like, she would be playing with dolls and making them go potty. And she would be interested when I would go potty, and she would sit on the potty And so I saw the signs. Now she's on the PDA, or she fits the PDA profile of autism. So it's like, you're not going to make this kid do anything she doesn't want to do. So when I
Yeah.
went to tell her BCBA, hey, I'm potty training Kennedy this weekend, I could tell she was like, you sure about that? Like, okay, I'm like, they weren't telling me we're going to do this. I told them we're going to do this. But you know what? She caught on. Like, she caught on within a couple days, and she was peeing and pooping in the potty right away, but only at home. Then I had to send her to school in a pull-up. And then it was time for like a new school year and a new teacher. So we had to pause for a month and then re-up it. And like eventually we got there, but it was just a bit of a journey. It took a good 9 months to get them both dialed in. But yes, they're both dialed in.
I love that. And it's amazing that, you were able to see those signs of readiness and you believed in her. Like we kind of talked about at the beginning of this episode, is just that you were seeing she's being playful. She's interested. She understands this concept. And I think that's a big sign of readiness that is also not really brought up in a lot of the downloads and books and things, is just like their ability to understand what this concept is. And, being in tune with your child. Like you said, you are the expert of your kid, and she clearly understands what it is. And if she's confident now sitting on the toilet, you're like, okay, let's run with this confidence and interest while we have this. That's what I call the magic window, this window of like them actually being interested in it, like run with it.
And you can potty train a child after age 4,
Yes.
just so I don't want any parents listening to think that there is that magic window, and we can get there on the child's own timeline. And I say they're both potty trained, but Mallory still has accidents 75% of the time at night. She still wears a pull-up at night. Other than that, she's potty trained. But that can be so normal even for typically developing children.
Yep. Around by age like 5 to 6, we want to see some of that overnight dryness starting to develop. But it's also important to recognize, like, is there any kind of constipation going on? Like,
Yes.
what's their diet like? Like, are they still drinking like milk before bed? Like, is that a bladder irritant for them? It's not a bladder irritant for everybody, but for some it is. And so it's kind of, if they are, approaching that 6th, 7th birthday, and you're like, okay, this is still happening pretty frequently. Who can I consult with that we can kind of chat through this? Also, integrated reflexes. I know that's kind of like a hot topic word right now in the therapy world, but it really can impact, staying dry overnight if your child has some unintegrated reflexes. So if you ever have concerns with those kind of things, like reach out, ask a professional for, their advice. And there's so many, professionals out there right now between YouTube and Instagram and, that are there to support you. And oftentimes will give you a quick free piece of advice if you send them a message or comment on one of the posts.
I want to speak to that real quick because I actually did hire. I think I went after I read Crap Potty Training. She had like a directory of consultants you could hire or coaches, and I found one, that was an OT. I wanted to make sure they had experience with autism and an actual OT. And so I did consult with her, and I hired her, and I had access to her for a month where I could like text my questions. Really, I didn't need that, but it was nice to have someone to ask a question to, and someone to just like help game plan with me before we started. So that was nice. And I know that's a luxury. Not everybody can, maybe afford to go hire somebody to help them, but when you can, and if you can, it's so nice. And I know that's something that you do for people. And if I knew you then, I would have hired you for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's like important, like you said, not everybody has the extra financials to, hire somebody to kind of be that person. But I always say, it's kind of like your own personal Google, because, and now I know AI is trying to act like they're a real person, but they're not. And so when you have a person that you can go to, and it doesn't just have to be, like when I do consulting with families, I am like, well, you can ask me about potty training, but you can also ask me about your newborn's sleep or starting solids or whatever is on your mind, your relationship issues going on. Like, I kind of want to just be a person that you can go to, and I'm like your personal Google, because I know going into Google can be so overwhelming, and you search it and you've got 30,000 different opinions and ideas, and it's just stressful. So someone that actually has heard your story and knows your child's, especially like their medical journey and what's kind of going on and can problem
Yeah.
solve with you is gonna be your best bet. And, bringing these things up to your pediatrician, they're supposed to be like your frontline person. They're not always that. They're overwhelmed. They have a lot of patience,
They
but
just
fine.
don't know. They'll
They
just
just
be like, oh, they're wetting the bed at night, they're constipated. And that's
I
all.
and I wish that they were, a better support person, but it is a good person to turn to first and
Yeah.
foremost. Bring up your concerns. Maybe your pediatrician is going to have some great advice, and typically it's free at those wellness checks that are covered. Or, I know a lot of the healthcare systems down here, you can kind of send them like a message on the
Yeah.
app and, hey, what about this? Do I need to come in for an appointment, or can you help? And maybe they'll send you a link, and that's free to kind of start with and just build up your resource list until you can maybe save up for one of those consults or, something else to support you.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like you and I both know potty training is a struggle for so many parents, and not just parents to neurodivergent kids. It is so hard.
Mhm.
But what I didn't know then that I understand now is like there's so much to even being ready to start potty training. And so much we can be doing to help them get ready. Or that if we are able to identify their struggles and their anxieties, like maybe they're afraid of a toilet. That's the first thing we have to tackle. And to realize you don't have to just jump into a potty party weekend or a book. Like there's a lot we can be doing to help them make sure they know how to pull up their pants or that they're comfortable in the bathroom. And that's something that you have so many great resources for.
Yeah, that's amazing that you brought that up, because I feel like that is like parents will hear from the daycare or a neighbor or a friend or someone, and they're like, oh, they have to be potty trained by the time they're 3, and your kid's like 2 years and 10 months. And you're like, oh my gosh, what? And so you just like dive in, even though your kid has shown no signs, you guys haven't talked about it at all. Then all of a sudden, like their diaper is gone one morning, and they're like, what the heck is going on in this house? And so, it's really important to realize that you can be starting with the most simple of steps. Like you said, just bring them into the bathroom. Don't even talk about sitting on it or what you do on there. Just like slow, steady steps over time is going to help reduce anxiety. And it's like exposure therapy almost, just
Yeah.
getting your child like accustomed to what's happening in there. And, with that, I know you're kind of going into that, but what specific advice would you give to any parents if they're just starting or just thinking about starting this potty training process, specifically with their autistic child?
Yeah. Well, I would say throw away a timeline. Like and luckily for us raising autistic kids, there's a lot of situations like special preschools or ABA type settings where you don't have to have them potty trained in order for them to get the support that they need throughout the day. And they'll work with you and they will change diapers. So just know that. But throw out the timeline that they have to be potty trained by a certain age or within a certain amount of days and believe that they're capable. I think that is so huge. Like just know they're going to get there and try not to stress about it because then they'll be stressed about it. And get support if you can and if you need it.
Yeah, I love that advice. It's simple, it's to the point, and it kind of wraps up this topic of, believe in your child. I feel like that is so, so key here and so important for these families. And, I know I've had endless parents reach out to me and say their pediatrician said they're not ready. All these other people are telling me that I can't potty train my child because they're non-speaking or, they're not communicating with me. And it's just such a false narrative. Just because your child is not using words to communicate with you doesn't mean that they're unable to communicate those potty needs. Maybe they're doing a potty dance, or they're taking their diaper off, or they're pulling your hand somewhere. Like they're communicating their needs with you. And that's just as good as if they're using their words to tell you, I have to go to the bathroom. So I think that's another like big sign takeaway for any parents listening. That's like the number one comment I feel like I get. Well, what about my child that, is nonverbal? I'm like, hey, throw that
Yep.
narrative out the window. That's not even something I'm thinking about. Let's look at all of these other signs. Are they showing interest? What are their interests, and how, if they're not showing interest, how can we help them show interest in it? Like
Yeah.
bring
And there's
their
a lot we can do.
Yeah, bring their favorite toys into the mix, decorate their potty with their favorite character stickers, just make it fun, make it playful, and your children will get there, and have confidence in yourself that your child will get there and that you are the perfect person to do this. Their BCBA or their occupational therapist or their teacher is not the perfect person to do it. Your child, you are the expert, and you are their safe place. So they're going to feel the most confident and comfortable with you.
Amen. I love it all.
Yes. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with parents or caregivers who might be in the thick of potty training or who are just maybe navigating a new autism diagnosis? Any final words or advice?
Well, I guess we've talked a lot about potty training today, but I spend a lot of my focus with my company, Autism Savvy, supporting moms navigating a new autism diagnosis. So if there's anybody listening that is newer to autism and just still having a lot of fear, doesn't understand what resources there are, what options there are, they're trying to process their feelings. They don't have a friend. They have no one to talk to about any of this. Like, I wish I could sit next to each of them on the couch and hold their hands and give them a pep talk. Since I can't do that, I did write that book right there. I did write a book. It's called Not a Typical Motherhood. It's the guide for navigating a child's new autism diagnosis. You can grab it on Amazon. And it's like I'm sitting on the couch next to you. I do share the journey of getting all of my autistic kiddos diagnoses in place and services in place. But then the second half of the book is all about autism high level. It's like Autism 101 meets Chicken Soup for the Soul. And I think it can help a lot of people. So I'll just mention that that's a resource for parents if they need a warm hug from across the states.
Yeah, that is incredible and such a great resource. Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like so many people feel alone when they get this diagnosis, and they just get handed the diagnosis and a piece of paper with nowhere to turn. There's no roadmap for this, and there's no explanation of what comes next. And I think that you would be an amazing person. And I know, you're on Instagram, and, if TikTok ever comes back, you're on there as well. And you are an amazing resource. I love connecting with you. Anytime I have questions or parents that need support, I always send them your way. So if you guys are looking for support with your child's autism diagnosis, reach out to Amber, go purchase her book. She is amazing.
Oh, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm so glad you invited me on.
Of course. And thanks so much for being here and sharing your story and your advice. I know so many parents are just going to find it incredibly helpful. Where exactly can listeners connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, they can head over to autismsavvy.com or Instagram at autismsavvy.
Amazing. Amber, thank you again for sharing your story, wisdom, and encouragement with us today. Your journey is truly, truly inspiring. And I know so many parents listening will walk away feeling more empowered and supported. To all our listeners, I hope this episode reminded you that you're not alone, no matter where you are in your parenting or professional journey. And if you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Leave a review. It helps us reach even more people who could use this kind of support. Thank you again for being here. This is just the beginning, and I can't wait to continue this journey with you all. See you next time on the Pediatric Playbook. Take care. I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation and found it helpful as you navigate along this journey, whether that's supporting kids, growing as a therapist, or both. If you're looking for more resources, tips, or support, be sure to check out my website linked in the show notes and connect with me on social media at Your Pediatric OT on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or wherever else you can find me. You'll find everything from free guides to in-depth courses designed to help you make an even bigger impact. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Pediatric Playbook. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend or colleague who'd love it too. I can't wait to see you next time, same place, same time, right here on the Pediatric Playbook.